vampires because then they get full access to me and all that. But the thing I learned, Ed, is that cutting a vampire out of your everyday life and even like completely cutting off from them, it doesn't end the vampirism. You actually have to know and face the truth about them to actually stop the vampirism, to actually fully properly stop the energy drain. You actually have to know the truth about them, and this, Ed, was the most difficult thing because I had cut off with them. I was years and decades away from having anything to do with them, but I hadn't faced the truth about them. There's a difference, Ed, between saying that, you know, this person was vampirizing off my energy because that's how that person was, and there I was available, and so it happened, and then the thug world, they say, the thug world says this is a two-way relationship. They wanted to abuse you and you wanted to get abused. So you think all these things, and all of this keeps you away from actually dealing with the situation and actually dealing with what happened. And they make it that they've floated this theory about narcissism. Like there are these people who are, they just, narcissism means someone who loves themselves. And that's a good thing, but they made it like these people are selfish, and they're narcissists and they're selfish, and that's what they do. And yet again, Ed, that turns away people from facing the actual truth of the actual truth that will set the person actually free. And in my life, Ed, that truth came down to realizing that that person was intentionally doing it. This is very difficult, Ed, for people to face, especially, Ed, if the energy vampires are small children, because they're being controlled by someone else, and very often that is done very smoothly. The culture has made it really smooth, Ed, for children to be used as channels for energy vampirism, and young people and such. It's very difficult. And the thing, Ed, is to realize that if a person is losing energy, that means that there is intentional vampirism, because if there isn't an intention to vampirize, then when you stop whichever activity you're doing with them, through which you were losing, let's say, money, or let's say time, or emotional energy, listening to their stories or whatever, when you stop those activities, if the draining stops, then that was an unintentional drain. But if the draining continues well after that, that means it's intentional, Ed, and the person is a psychological vampire, and not so much on psychological, not that they're doing it accidentally, because there is no accidental psychological vampirism. It is a decision. Normal people, Ed, what's out of sight is out of mind. You have to have an intention to vampirize someone, to be tapping into them even when they're not around. And the proof that I have, Ed, for all of this, what I'm saying, that the vampirism is intentional and orchestrated very often by others, is that when you stop, when you realize this truth, that someone was intentionally doing it, you actually feel the difference. And that's how I know this is true, because that is the only way, Ed, that I'm alive today, because I had that many energy vampires plugged into me, ritually, consciously, unconsciously, subconsciously. I cannot count the number. I was supporting hundreds of people with my life energy, hundreds of people, and through them God knows how many others, because I'm designated, ritually, consciously designated for it. So I was played on that level, and I really found, Ed, that what I'm telling you right now, I found it out through very hard and very, very critical experience, Ed. Critical experience, that only when the vampirism is intentional, only then do you feel the drain, even after you've stopped the activity that was draining you. Anyway, I got to get back to the I got to get back to the cooking.